Boo! Hey, welcome to Jumpscared, the
I done got
podcast with
spooked again.
several rakish hosts. That's not slender on content, but may make you go to sleep
Done.
and also been
Are you
drowned.
are you implying that your podcast is boring?
No. It's soothing and
Hmm.
relaxing, talking about murder and death and destruction. I
As we
am
We
here.
should we should do this entire podcast in NPR voices.
Yes, I'm here
That's
with
a,
David King, creator of Midnight Marinara.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
Also, Kayla, last name unknown,
it's a pleasure being here today.
producer of Midnight Marinara. And we have with us Mr. Dead Palette,
Hello there.
creator and producer of Dead Palette. And I believe
Yes.
he's actually flown in today from Pallet Town,
Yes.
despite being dead, which is very kind of him. And
Well, you know that recently, and this is a very fairly serious topic, that Lavender Town syndrome has been broadcast pretty frequently across the Kanto region. So the dead coming back is kind of a problem right now, and
I
something that I don't know if the authorities are really addressing.
I've been hearing a lot from the anti-vaxxers about Lavender Town syndrome, and they apparently believe that its cause is not based on a viral agent.
No? Huh. Hmm.
Something to think about. But anyway, that's bullshit. And that would be extremely fucking boring. So, the theme of this podcast is least scary horror movie, or horror movie that wasn't a horror movie, but after that, or before that, it's already fucked up. Just deal with it. Before
Yeah.
that, we'll be
More
talking about
importantly,
the
And now for
scariest
something completely different.
non-horror movie. The horror movie that wasn't really supposed to be a horror movie. We each have a pick. I assume Dead Palette has one. I haven't heard his yet. I think.
Yes, I do.
And so we will be going in a roundabout fashion. We will each say what our pick is for the horror movie that wasn't actually intended to be a horror movie. And yeah, so that's about it. I don't know who's going first, and there is no preparation. So I'm just going to randomly pick someone. How about Kayla?
All right. Are we choosing horror movies that weren't meant to be horror
Right.
or weren't scary, or non-horror movies that were horrors?
Non-horror movies that are still horror movies are scary.
Okay. So my choice for the non-horror movie that wasn't intended to be a horror movie, but I think it is the 1970s Raggedy Ann and Andy's musical adventure.
And this is something
that
you've
is
made
scary.
up?
This is, I can confirm this exists.
No, it does exist.
And why don't we do it this way? We'll each say what the movie was intended to be, like a short, maybe sentence or two, and then explain why it totally was not that and was in fact a horror movie.
All right. Well, Raggedy Ann and Andy's musical adventure, if you don't know from the title, is an animated film about the famous doll Raggedy Ann and her brother Andy going on an adventure, and the whole fucking thing's a musical.
Wow. Her
I know.
brother/boyfriend.
Her brother/boyfriend.
Her brother friend.
Her brother friend. Ah.
Hey, Luke, it worked for Luke. I mean, in Skywalker, it could work for
Twins with benefits.
So, actually, I'm gonna be all film schooly here. Horror comes from drama, and the purpose of a drama is to put you close to the actors or the characters in order to make you feel something. And for a horror movie, it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. Raggedy Ann and Andy's musical adventure completely does this. Because the animator is, and director of this film is Richard Williams, and if you don't know who he is, you would know his animations from, have you ever seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I think
Oh, yeah.
You-
most likely everyone has. I don't know. We'll see. In the comments, I guess.
Dead Palette?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay. So the animation he did the animation for Toontown. So that whole fucking weird nonsense.
What's
and
interesting
then also,
is that I actually was thinking that would be a good choice. That was like my second choice for movie that's not intended to be a horror movie, but is.
I was almost going to choose that, but it becomes more of a horror movie near the end, in my opinion, for that one. So I'm like, no, it and also it was intended to be a nitty gritty spoof off of detective films,
Right.
Film noir.
So, and that actually goes hand in hand, sort of, with horror because of the nitty gritty dark underbelly shit. So, I figured,
Watch that be Dead Pal's choice.
damn it. Yeah, and also Richard Williams, he also did the animation for Thief and the Cobbler as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know that part.
Yeah, he did.
The Thief and the Cobbler is kind of great, but also has a really weird and myriad story about what it was intended to be and what it ultimately became.
It was taken away from him.
Which is terrible because...
And then was made very Hollywood-ish.
Yeah,
basically.
the recobbled version is the version to watch.
Exactly.
Really.
Not
But,
the Thief version, which was Hollywood's version.
The
The cobbled version, not the stolen one.
They stole his vision.
But if you remember the animation from Thief and the Cobbler and Toontown, do you remember how fucked up and crazy and surreal it is?
Mm-hmm.
Put that in the 70s when drugs were raging. And that's Raggedy Ann and Andy's Musical Adventure. It's not just like trippy and surreal, it's frightening. And it does make you feel uncomfortable.
So you would say it probably didn't sell any Raggedy Ann dolls?
No. No, it was... the thing was, it bombed at the office. It did not do well. But as a film, you watch it and it's actually frightening because it does. The purpose of it is like these type of films, these type of animations, is to make you feel something. And
terror.
It's to make you feel something, and in this case, this made you feel uncomfortable. It makes everybody feel uncomfortable, and it's actually fucking scary.
Yeah, you couldn't see it, but while she was talking, I was miming a pair of scissors.
Yeah, I was gonna say, tell us about like a scene that is frightening. Like, what would you say is the most frightening scene, or something to that effect? Just for people who haven't seen it, you know.
Let's choose.
A lot of people haven't seen. I remember snatches of this from my youth, actually.
Yeah.
Seeing this on TV, and yeah,
I think the whole fucking movie is scary and insane. But I think the most famous one is the greedy scene, which is basically a blob, this brown blob that constantly just eats himself. That alone is frightening.
That sounds like a lot of people I know.
No, but there's this blob that actually eats himself. Like he's eating his amorphous arms, his face, his stomach, everything. And that's the thing. He sings a song about how he's constantly hungry, and then he's transforming himself into these weird shapes, awkward, and because the man's like made out of like brown caramel taffy with a bunch of candy thrown in, and the whole thing, watching it is just like a weird, frightening trip. It's like, holy shit.
So yeah, eating and pooping yourself forever, not really friendly for a children's movie.
Yeah.
Not to mention he tries to snip out. Was it one of the doll's hearts with a pair of scissors?
No, Raggedy Ann has so the thing he sings about is that in order to end his hunger, he has to have a sweetheart, and she actually has a heart sewn into her chest. I guess she has a heart in her chest, and then he's like, "Oh, I need to steal your heart," and he actually tries to cut it out.
Nice.
Again, kids movie.
And this is before the advent of kids movies that were also for adults. So this was actually legit supposed to be a children's movie.
This was legit supposed to be a children's film.
All right.
Wait,
Wow.
Well, I
Well,
look after kids in my day job, and unfortunately, I've seen parts of this movie as well. I've only seen like the first 20 minutes solidly when I watched it with kids, but I've seen like bits here and there of other parts. And I walked in at a part where everything was in black and white, and there was like a giant checkerboard, and
Yep.
they were like talking in like car horns. So I have no idea what was going on with that, but
I was just picturing Kayla saying, "That's not in the movie. What did you say?"
yes.
lost episode, except lost movie entirely.
Dead Pallet, we found you, or I guess they wouldn't call you Dead Pallet in real life, but we found you just staring at the static on that screen. What's up? But yeah. So a strong opening with Raggedy Ann and Andy's musical nightmare.
Yeah, I just want to add too, because I remember very specifically just how weird that movie was for my youth. Remember there was a camel. Wasn't there a
Yeah.
camel doll, and he keeps having visions of ghostly camels leading him toward home?
Actually, yeah, and that's supposed to symbolize. Actually, I looked that up. It was supposed to symbolize all the dead camels. Like then he's trying to go home to the camels in the sky. Again, dark, creepy film.
Yeah, there was that. There was the king who was small, and he gets obsessed with getting big. So he gets like near the end, he like starts getting huger and huger because he's like inflated or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I've done it! I am the biggest king in the world!" And he's just like laughing manically, and he like doesn't he explode?
Yeah. And along with the crazy night, because I love you.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's just him singing that line was like, holy
So
shit.
basically, we need to move on, obviously, but I just wanted to throw in the bits that I remember from my youth, and it didn't frighten me so much, but I still remember seeing that. God, that was fucking weird.
Although there is a one moment that is what the fuck, in a way that it's not like the rest of the film, and it's in the beginning, and it's Raggedy Andy singing Girl's Toy, and that song is really catchy, jazzy song that actually sounds like something you could possibly hear in an old kids film, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like it fits in this film. And it's actually a really good song. I plan to get it on my music list one day when I find the MP3 for it.
So, a delightful gem for those of you who have never heard of it, Raggedy and Andy's musical adventure.
Look up the clips on YouTube, everyone.
You're up for some nightmares.
Yeah, look up the clips and you'll be like, nope.
I remember that the characters also like talk in whispers because they're like supposed to be inanimate objects. So it's kind of like Brave Little Toaster where the characters kind of whisper under their breath and it's eerie.
Yeah, actually, I didn't think about that, but yeah, they do. Like, they do talk in a I don't know, Raggedy Ann. I'm getting really sick of this. Yeah, it is under the breath.
So do we even need the further discussion, or is that just the winner of the creepiest fucking movie?
Well, let's
wasn't
find
supposed
out.
to be.
What we came right out of the gate strong, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And I
Yeah.
wonder how Dead Pallet will do in second place.
I win again.
No, I'm going to drive this one home.
Go for it.
I'm going with the movie Drive.
Oh, that's good.
Drive is a 2011 American neo-noir art house film directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. That's a weird last name. Starring Ryan Gosling. It was an adaptation of the 2005 James Salas novel of the same name, with a screenplay written by Hussein Anami. It's basically a more pretentious version and like high-minded version of Transporter.
Yeah.
So
It
if
would
you've
hard
ever
to
seen
be a more
Transporter,
low-minded version, but yes.
yes. So if you've ever seen Transporter, or hopefully you've seen Drive, Transporter is like, oh, there's this guy who's going to transport things, and he has these rules and everything, and he's like supposed to kidnap a girl, and he realizes that that's wrong, and he has a heart of gold, so he's like this badass with a heart of gold. This movie, the main character, you learn very early on, is they never come out and say it, but he's a psychopath. And over the course of the movie, he becomes in touch with his feelings, and he befriends this woman and her child, and this woman and her child, the father husband is in jail, and he just helps out around the house and everything.
Right.
And through doing this, he develops feelings for them and sees what it would be like to be a normal person, because he's a stunt driver, he's a stock car driver, he's a getaway driver, and he's a car thief. He does a lot of little different jobs
Right.
here and there.
Right.
But through coming in touch with his feelings and slowly becoming less of a psychopath, he becomes more afraid because he has something to protect. And the people who he has to protect them from are also afraid. And so it's like this very interesting situation where there's a lot of, like, the movie builds and every character develops more tension throughout the movie. So it's not like your typical slasher movie where everyone's afraid of the slasher. The slasher is also very afraid and nervous. And the movie starts out where he's doing a getaway driving, and he's calm and composed, and you can look at him and see the look in Ryan Gosling's eye, and they never name his character. You can look in his eyes and just see he is not affected by, running away from police at all. His heartbeat is just normal.
Right.
And it gets to a point where he has to track down this person, and he's very worried about the safety of this woman and her child. He breaks into a topless bar with a hammer and threatens to hammer a bullet into this guy's teeth. And he's, like, nervous and shaking the whole time, and so is the guy he's doing it to. And he has all these women around him who are completely naked, and you're not looking at them. You're just looking at the face of these characters and how nervous and freaked out they are, and all of this tension. Have you guys seen this movie?
I have, yes, and I think
Okay,
they
good.
have too. Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking the movie was something else.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. See, earlier, I think you mentioned this, and I was like, oh, I should check that out. And then, for some reason, I mentioned,
Because for some reason we were talking about it. I'm like, I think it has to be that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, which I can understand. And then I realized I'm mistaking it for Nightcrawler.
because I know you, because the thing is, I didn't know this was going to come up in the discussion, but I know you've mentioned the movie to me before. I know you've mentioned Drive to me before.
Yes, I'm quite a fan of it, and
Yeah.
it's was the inspiration for Hotline Miami, if you know about that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I would
and
say go see it as soon as you can, or not go see it, but see it in your house as soon as you can.
That seems like a good idea.
That would
I'm
be
gonna
a
put
fun-
that on my roster of things to watch. And I'm sorry, I feel like I've now come in here ill prepared.
Well, that's because you have.
But then again, like, it's not like. But then again, like, I didn't know what you guys were gonna bring in here. So.
No, but
I know that there's probably a big reveal that you're going to bring up, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, big reveal on my part.
you-
No, I mean on Dead Pallet's part.
Oh, okay.
If
So,
that's the case.
yeah. I'll try and avoid any spoilers, but the movie keeps driving home this theme of
But
this yes, of person as car. So this unnamed driver, they never name him. He's just, occasionally they'll call him a driver or something. But they have a scene where they're buying a stock car for him to drive, and he's the person who's buying the stock car for him is going to a loan shark to get the money, and the loan shark is like, "Is this really worth it?" And this shitty stock car, and he's like, "No, the stock car isn't worth it, but I have a really good driver for it." And they keep talking about this, in terms of him being a getaway driver and a car thief and how he does all these jobs. They're really sending home this message that this person is the car, is the heart of the car, is a machine himself, and he doesn't have these feelings. And his motivations are very strange throughout the movie, and it kind of takes you a while to come to terms with what his actual motivations are. So there's a scene where they would normally imply like a sex scene where he's developing feelings for this woman, but instead of doing that, it just shows him and this woman joyriding. And so that's like the only way that he can share his life is through driving. He has no other way of expressing himself.
Wow.
And I won't spoil too much of this, but there's a high point in the movie where he grabs a stunt double mask that he has for being a stunt driver and does a series of very strange killings in this mask. And the ambiguity of what that means might not hit you the first time you watch it. It's definitely a watch it a few times kind of movie. But as it dawns on you what that's representing, it's pretty scary and pretty horrific.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I was referencing, was that, the mask thing, as you said, without spoiling too much, when he's doing the murders, as you mentioned, with this mask on, it's as you said, a stunt double mask. So it has this, like, uncanny valley kind of quality to it.
It's very,
Well, because there's a theory, like, if you're going to make a monster less human, you take away the human face. That's why with Silent Hill, it works to have Pyramid Head or the nurse. They cover up the face to make them more seem like monsters. Same with Mike Myers in Halloween. They give him a mask to make him less human. And that way, the only humanity that you can remember is him as a child. So
it also works for Oscar Mayer as well.
But
put him in a hot dog and
oh god,
Jesus.
So
this is
Wiener
definitely
Mobile.
more Michael Myers kind of mask.
well, I mean, but the idea is like put him in this mask, take away what humanity you thought he had.
And that's kind of what it gets at, is throughout this movie he's becoming more human, and that's making him afraid. So he has to put on this mask to make him less human, like one last time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well,
It's like he doesn't want to show that fear that he clearly has, so he has to put on that mask to put on a brave front to the people he's trying to kill.
And I will say,
If that makes any sense.
not to help somebody out with their point, but, as opposed to tearing them down. But I will say that my favorite scenes in that movie are when he's wearing that mask, because the build up to that point, gets you to the certain place where when that happens, it almost is like a jarring, kind of like disturbing sight. Because
It's
up
very
until
jarring.
that point, you would not expect any of this to happen. And, it's not really that much of a spoiler, but, it's more of on a subtle level, that this point that occurs, you're like, oh shit. Like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable, So, I don't know.
know if I want to spoil the elevator scene for them, but
No,
there's
I
a
wouldn't.
wonderful scene that's just known as the elevator scene.
Yeah.
And early on in the movie, you see that he has a jacket that has a scorpion on the back, and there's this proverb about, I think it's a Chinese proverb about a scorpion and a frog, and the scorpion needs to cross the river, and the frog says, "I'm not going to take you on my back because you're going to sting me." And the scorpion says, "No, I need to get across the river. Why would I sting you?" And so the frog agrees, and the scorpion gets on his back, and they're starting to go across the river, and the scorpion stings the frog, and the frog's like, "Why would you do that? Because now we're both going to die." And the scorpion says, "I can't help it, I'm a scorpion." And so there's this nature of he's a psychopath, and he can't escape that he's a psychopath, even if he wants to act like he can have a normal life.
Well, I was going to
That's
say
clever.
I was going to say two things. One, you can tell just based on what I know, the whole thing about running around killing people with the mask is I totally get where Hotline Miami's getting that from at this point.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
And then the second thing is I've heard that proverb before, but it was the Devil's Carnival.
Yeah, they're doing the sequel. I'm so excited. No, you have no idea. This
Have either of you seen that, the Devil's Carnival?
And
I
that's
haven't.
going to be David's choice for movie, is the
Yes.
Devil's Carnival.
No, it's a horror musical. It doesn't count.
It's from the same people who did Repo, the Genetic Opera.
So it's interesting because we have two very different choices.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh god.
And
Yes.
I would recommend everybody see Drive that hasn't seen it. And I would not recommend people see Raggedy Ann and Andy's musical
No,
nightmare
it's shit.
fuckfest because it sounds horrifying.
Yeah, just
And I don't
just
know
watch
what-
clips. Just
what
watch
use there
clips
would
on
be.
YouTube.
I might go back and watch it again anyway, though, or at least clips of it, because I need to be reminded how weird that thing is. You know how it like you have memories of stuff in your childhood, but memory gets distorted. I just remember who knows? I might have a different perspective looking at it.
Well, the
Then-
whole movie is on YouTube, which
Yeah, I know.
which doesn't surprise me.
Pirated movies on YouTube? What?
Whoa.
Whoa! No, it's a movie that nobody gives a shit about. That's why
True.
YouTube has allowed it.
So I guess maybe I'll go second to last. What do you think about that, Mr. King?
Yeah, go for it. I mean,
Okay.
you're the boss.
My pick for terrifying horror movie that is not a horror movie is 1987's RoboCop. This
Not
is
to
a
be
movie.
confused with
Say
I
what?
am-
the
Not
more
the-
recent RoboCop.
No, not the more recent one. That's horrific for a different reason.
I have not seen RoboCop in years. I can barely remember the movie. I
You'll remember it as I
watching
go, I'm sure. At least key scenes.
Well, of course. I mean, like, I've seen RoboCop, and I haven't even seen that many movies.
But of course, RoboCop being a movie about a future where there's a police officer, the friendly police officer on the corner who becomes a robot. A police officer who's a shiny silver robot, and he goes around stopping the bad guys, and he's, hey kids, get the action figure of RoboCop and get laser RoboCop and flying RoboCop and all the different toys that weren't in the movie, but whatever. And get the toys of the villains and have little battles on your yard, and oh bang bang, I shot you, you're down. Terrifying
Yeah.
fucking movie that no child should ever see. I mean, it's rated R, but I saw it as a kid. Every kid I knew saw it,
Right?
and we all loved it, and we all played RoboCop. But there were also a lot of things in there that none of us would speak of until adulthood. I mean, where do you even start with this? Because Peter Weller getting blown away in the beginning. Having his arm blown off,
Yep.
having his chest filled with bullets, all the while going, just not dying as he's mercilessly slaughtered. Not only that, just the animatronics of RoboCop, that they mixed in, that uncanny valley, herky-jerky kind of motion, very disturbing in a, sort of stop-motion kind of way where it's like that feeling of something's not right. But it
Yeah.
also played into the story of he is basically more robot than person now.
Mm-hmm.
So it is
I
actually
wouldn't-
that person with a face stretched over, metal. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
I don't think the animatronic scene of the robot falling down the stairs would be so memorable if it wasn't animated in that jerky way.
Exactly.
Because it like really portrayed that thing's fear in that situation.
Right.
At this really stupid fucking obstacle.
And one point that's interesting about that is, I don't know whether it's ED 209 or Ed 209 or whatever, but when it does fall down the stairs, it makes, for no reason whatsoever except to terrify you, it makes the sound of a squealing, terrified pig. It makes no sense. Why is a robot doing this? Why is it going wee, 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 as it's on its back trying to flip around and get up? It's absolutely horrifying. And, I don't know if I have to even mention the toxic waste scene.
Oh no, it's amazing.
I believe it's Emil, if that's his name. If I'm getting the right character name. Accidentally driving into barrels of toxic waste and coming out of it with melting flesh, hanging fingers, his face falling off, and
Oh God.
going back to the Peter Weller getting shot up scene, not dying. Actually being on screen physically, mortally tortured. Until he's taken out of his misery, and you, even as a child, seeing this when I was a kid, I would have been actually 7 years old. Seeing this on the screen, I was relieved when he got hit by the car, because I was like, oh, thank God, his suffering is over. And that's a dark thing for a kid to know,
Yeah,
And he was an evil person.
Yes.
He's fucking evil, and you didn't even want him to get tortured that bad.
Right,
No.
exactly.
The crazy thing is, you said you saw this on the big screen.
Well, I saw it on video,
Oh,
but I'm guessing, around 7 years old. It would have been the same, it would have been right when it came out, because it's like, everybody's playing RoboCop and everybody's doing RoboCop shit.
right, that makes sense.
But, it's just that thing of, that was back when, and, it may have taken a year or two, I guess, to come out at that point, with VHS being what it was. But, that was when kids saw these types of movies, and, there are a lot of terrifying things that get through the cracks, and, in children's movies and so on and so forth. And, it feels kind of cheap picking an R-rated, extreme violent, body horror movie, thinking,
Right.
This could be technically like a horror movie, but I gotta think, well, back then it sort of was a kid's movie, except for the fact of the
In a
rating.
weird way, yeah. Because the thing is, it was a rated R movie, but who's gonna watch it but the kids who love the toys so much?
Yeah, and it's, they had the cartoon, they had the video games, they had all stuff like that. And
It's, in a way, do
yeah.
you remember the Toxic Avenger?
oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
the Toxic
Same cake.
Crusaders, I
Same
think was the
fucking
cartoon.
cake.
But yeah,
Toxic Crusaders, yeah.
God. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my pick, and not only that, but the gruesome deaths of everybody, getting. I feel like the Ed 209 robot actually probably one of the best on-screen monsters of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Because that sort of brought about this idea, and I don't know, this may have been done technically before, but to me it seemed like the first time you looked at a robot character and had that sort of cold terror of realizing there was no mind behind that. There was no emotion or thought or, that type of thing where everything was like, it's a robot, but it can feel. It can, there was nothing there except for the fact that somebody fucked up the programming and it didn't realize when you weren't holding a gun anymore.
Yeah.
I can't recall a movie that did that before RoboCop.
Right.
I mean, they've done that with people, like Repulsion showed this woman descending into madness, and she slowly became ruled by it to the point where there's nothing there. And I mean, they've done horror movies like that, but I don't think with a robot. No, I don't think.
If Inside Out had advanced beyond a certain point, and I'm not going to say too much, I could have turned into that.
Oh god! Oh, that's
Okay.
But I think it's even sadder to know that Murphy was still in there.
Yeah.
And there for a while, he just wasn't, you weren't able to access him.
Right.
But you knew that he was in there. In
Oh god, yeah.
this limbo state.
And to know that, as I say, as a kid, this is things that's been touched upon in many things, but, to have that theme of, hey, guess what? His wife is never going to love him again. He's dead. He's a corpse in a machine. That's it.
so sad.
It's almost, the ending's almost sad in that he acknowledges that he's Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When they ask him who he is. But RoboCop is kind of like a slasher film in a way, because whenever he kills someone, you get that same sense of excitement of yeah, get fucking punished, but instead of being like teenagers who are doing sexual things and they need to be punished for that, it's like evil people.
Right.
Right.
It's people
That
doing
are being
drugs
punished.
instead of premarital sex.
Yes. Like
Depending-
the rapist that gets the shot in the dick near the beginning.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so that's my choice.
Damn.
I'll
good
buy that
choice,
for
really.
$1.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. I was going to touch upon that, but I don't know if that's going too far, is, the look at a dystopian future, which is that's done a million times to death, way before this and, way after it and all that. But,
Right.
just the idea of a commercial dystopian future, which is kind of an odd thing, but not really horror related, just interesting.
And then the car called the SUX.
Which
It's fucking
astonishingly
great.
like an SUV, but yeah.
But I think a major theme in that movie is like the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions, and that hell is Detroit in that movie.
Yes.
So you have this company that,
Well, I thought
you know,
Detroit was
on one
always
hand
that.
trying to do well, you know, for the citizens, and then you just have these assholes in there that are fucking shit up.
Right.
And you know, I haven't had a chance to add my 2 cents, but from a visual standpoint, like, and this is just an interesting to compare and contrast because, even what you know, even with movies today with their sophisticated special effects, like to go back and watch RoboCop, where the effects are generally more practical. You know, I mean, a certain part of you knows that it's not real, like it's special effects, but it's more real than anything you're going to see on screen a lot today.
Right.
Like when someone gets a limb blown off, or you know, someone gets shot to hell. It's not exactly what's happening, but you're still seeing something real happening on screen, and there's a more visceral reaction to that I have. I find that's why I find generally a lot of older. I have a much harder time dealing with, really
CGI?
grisly, gory movies from the 80s as opposed to movies now. Because movies now, you can look at it and go, that's clearly computer generated, you know?
A lot of movies, especially with the 3D effects, I mean, I think that it was ruined the minute you saw, and we've seen this in many different things now with CGI, the minute you see somebody get a limb blown off or their hand blown off or whatever, and they continue on as if nothing happened.
Right.
You know, like, oh, the madman killer is so crazed that when they shotgun his arm off, he just looks at the stump and keeps coming with the knife. Or, you know, when they did stuff like that, I think that kind of, you know, just on a visual scale, you know, that puts into your brain, okay, well, that's nothing. You know, that's meaningless now when I see it. Whereas with the older horror movies, you know, someone just putting a thumbtack under someone's fingernail, you know, they'd be screaming and there'd be blood spurting everywhere, you know. And you're like, oh God, you know.
See, that's the stuff I find. That's just, that vision you just described is the stuff that always gets to me. It's the really little torturous injuries that always give me the. Ugh.
We read the origin of Laughing Jack. You can actually hear the Undercook's analysis recording.
Fuck that story.
He kept running out of the room, like, no, I don't want to read this anymore.
They're pulling finger and toenails out. I can't deal with that. I need to leave.
I'll say that I listened to most of that.
It was the longest one we've done, so Jesus.
That's why, sweetheart, we are never going to watch Hellraiser.
Oh God,
no. I'm not going to watch Hellraiser.
That's actually on my to-watch list.
Oh.
Because I just finished all of the Alien and Predator movies, everything in that entire series, and now I want to do all of the slasher movies. So Hellraiser, Candyman, Freddy, Jason, all of those.
Now the weird thing is, despite my general, like what I just said about RoboCop and how I have a harder time with that, I actually think Candyman is a good movie.
I will say
think part
that
of it is the tone of it, but we're wandering off of our topic, so I don't want to be there too long.
I will say, as sort of maybe an end cap, that I knew a girl once that we went to rent a movie, and she rented one of the Hellraiser films. We watched it through, and she was totally unaffected by it, and I was like, this is not going to be a long-lasting affair. Because I was like, if you could just watch that and be like, so, what are we doing now? I'm like, nothing? Ever? Goodbye?
Are the movies bad? Because I've never actually seen those.
I only have seen one, and it was that one, and to give you an idea, it has the scene of two women, who are Cenobites, I guess, or whatever you call them, caressing this guy until their hands are under his skin. Caressing him under his skin with blood and gore and everything. And
That's why I want to read the book before I see the movie, or if I choose to see the movie.
Well, the funny thing again is that you mentioned Hellraiser and then Candyman came up. I'm like, hey, those are both based on Clive Barker stories. And yet I struggled with that one, but it's that Philip Glass music, man. I just love it so much.
And so, your pick, I guess, is going to be something of similar style to those films, then, yes?
Not so much. I mean,
Oh god.
well, the thing is, I feel like Kayla and I have this weird accord because we both picked essentially kids' movies. But and mine feels like a really obvious choice. I know people have cited this one to death and have done, oh, look at the horror elements of this, but I can't help it. It's the first thing that sprang to mind: Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
No!
Yeah, I'm going for the cliche here, guys. I'm sorry. I almost feel like I don't even need to talk about it because we've all seen this one, right?
No,
No,
I've
Yes.
never
seen it.
Really?
No, of course I've
People
seen
be
it.
bullshitting.
Yeah.
I did see the Tim Burton one though.
Ugh.
That's again much like the RoboCop remake, horror in an entirely different way.
No, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Every time I watch that movie, I have to grab a huge bag of candy. Fuck this movie! I need chocolate.
Well, it did its job. It was trying to sell candy.
And you gotta love anything to do with Tim Burton that somehow ends with, and everybody was okay, don't worry, children. I mean, from a Tim Burton movie, really.
Well, actually, in the book, they do show the kids coming out at the
Right.
end. That is in the novel.
Right, but, you know.
But I actually do like the fact in the movie, the original one, that you never see what happens to the kids. So it's just like, what the fuck?
Don't steal my thunder. I mean, because I was gonna say, one of the key points about that between the versions is that you never see those fucking kids again. And
Right.
Willy Wonka says they'll be okay and they're gonna come back to be their normal, nasty, terrible selves. But you can't trust that face. Gene Wilder, who is brilliant, by the way, as Willy Wonka,
Right.
is terrifying. There's something just off-putting about the way he plays Wonka. And you never quite know what the guy is thinking, even at the end. I personally find that you see him and he's a trickster and he's a goofball, but even when he's like happy, he doesn't seem that happy. He just seems kind of like he's just rolling with it. He looks there's something going on in that head.
No, wait, stop, come back.
And I mean those are parts that are played for laughs, but the subtext of it is just what makes it a little bit like unnerving if you really think about it. I mean,
He's very smug.
Yeah, he's super smug, and it's one of his most endearing character traits. But even when he's supposed to be in a good mood, there's that smugness is still there, and you just see this manipulator, you know.
He's sort of like the uncle that you're just not sure about.
Yeah.
Where he's like, come on, we're going to go down to the swim at the lake. And you're just like, you don't really know anything, but you're kind of like, no, that's okay. I'm going to play Voltrons,
Yeah.
I'll be here in the yard. You go ahead.
Yeah. But I mean, there's that to me. That's always been a thing that stuck out to me is that Willy Wonka just there's a lot more going on there, and there's the way the movie itself is kind of I think shot and where it's set lends this credence of kind of like non-whimsical to the whole thing because it's supposed to be presenting this very whimsical world, but the color palette is kind of muted. I mean, have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
How everything is kind of like, even when the colorful stuff, like they go to the chocolate room. They go to the room with all the nice colorful trees and the river being a very red shade of chocolate, apparently. And it's in this like brick, like old like brick factory room with a big skylight, and you're like, okay, there's something just off about this like colorful garden. But the other colors around it almost dull it.
Almost like Hansel and Gretel. They find the witch's house sort of thing.
That's one way to think about it. I think again the aesthetic, or like for example when Charlie's outside earlier in the movie and you're looking toward the factory, it doesn't look like a chocolate factory. It looks like some sort of place where it looks like some decayed industrial, like not decayed, but some abandoned industrial place, and
Like a place dreams go to die.
Yeah, but again, it's not oblique. It's subtle, and I think that's what I always took away from it. And there's all the weird shit poor Charlie encounters throughout the story. The dude with the cart who gives him like a cryptic warning in rhyme and then leaves. We never see him again. Who is he? Why does he seem to? Why does he so insisting on nobody ever goes in and nobody ever comes out?
It's like a roach
really
motel for children.
It's it kind of is because none of those kids ever came back out.
I'm sure you could find a lot of fan theories out there.
Oh yeah, well,
My theory is that the Oompa Loompas were actually in charge, but
what if the Oompa Loompas were? What if the Oompa Loompas weren't always Oompa Loompas? What if they were kids and they
Back in
became
day.
Oompa Loompas?
that'd be terrifying.
The Oompa Loompa song itself is done in a minor key. That's a little bit. That's something. All these little things that make the movie have this just kind of undercurrent of dread. I almost want to say.
Actually, when the director was asked why the boat scene, why would you choose something that disturbing, and they said to make him unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do next.
And okay. Then the thing is, as a kid, I could watch the entire movie just fine. The boat scene would come up, I'd have to close my eyes.
Of course.
Like suddenly, unexpectedly seeing a giant.
And animal slaughter.
You see a chicken getting its head cut off. You see the music is intimidating in that part. It's all like dun 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 dun. There's centipedes and spiders. I believe there's a shot at one point. There's like a man or a woman's like lying on the ground. And you see like centipedes crawling over the face, and you're just like, what the fuck? This movie just went off the rails. What is going on?
There's no earthly way of knowing.
And he just screams at the end of that poem. And there's a giant crab's mouth in the background. There's some scorpions. It's just, I was going to get to that part, but I wanted to build to it because
Too bad.
that comes midway, not even midway through the movie. And you're just like, what the fuck?
It's almost like the video from The Ring. You're just watching it up on the walls.
I love this like joke that wouldn't it be funny if a pilot said this same poem over the intercom before they're about to take off.
Is the ghastly reaper knowing?
There's no earthly way of knowing. Yes.
I love it.
Woo!
And
Oh,
the thing
man.
is,
Eyes off.
and even as a kid, even being terrified of that scene, I love this movie. I still love this movie, but
What the fuck?
it's a horror movie.
Mm.
It's about a crazy, smug manipulator guy who takes people into his factory, takes them through horrifying psychedelic tunnels, and one by one the children disappear, and usually and with implied ideas of horrific ends. Getting stuffed in a pipe and ending up in a furnace room. Everything's implied. That's the best thing about it. Everything's implied, but you just know, like, certain kids watching it, me included, are just kind of like, haha, it's not that bad, except for that fucking tunnel scene that gives me nightmares.
Right.
But then you really think about it, anyone who has a tunnel like that in their factory is not looking out for the best interests of the people around it.
Well, it's the same thing with Silent Hill, where they never actually show the face of dead bodies. They just have these things laying around that are implied to be dead bodies. And so the implication lets you do the work.
Yeah.
So
me,
Willy Wonka isn't killing these kids. You in your mind are killing these kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that makes it stranger.
And then
Well,
you
it was-
add in the sexual subtext.
the snozberries.
Well,
Yes.
if you're me.
Snozberries taste like snozberries.
Snozberries being a term used for the male genitalia in another work of the author.
Well, here's the interesting part, because it is mentioned what will happen to these kids if they don't catch them quick enough. So like
Right.
with Augustus, he's gonna be drowned by the chocolate.
He's gonna go into a furnace.
No. The furnace is actually.
Oh no, the
for-
furnace was Veruca.
Yeah, Veruca salt. She drops through if the bag eggs go into the trash chute, and the trash chute goes into the furnace, and then with Violet, she's gonna explode because of this thing she tried, and then Mike TV is basically going to be squished.
They're going to bring him into the taffy puller.
Oh yeah, they're trying to get him into the taffy puller. So basically, he's.
And the thing is, there's
and even then, Charlie almost died too.
Yeah, the
Right.
giant fan blades above the fizzy lifting drinks room, and then the final thing is that, and I'm assuming everyone's seen this movie, even people listening to this, so I don't fucking care about giving spoilers. At the end, you find out this whole thing was some weird test, almost like a gladiatorial run to get someone to take over the business.
Right.
So that means, like, Wonka deliberately led them into that room knowing there would be a temptation to do the fizzy lifting drinks. And he installed a fan blade above the room just in case someone drank those fizzy lifting drinks.
Or is it the fact that in order to replace Mr. Wonka in his existence where he's trapped in this factory, someone else has to complete these strange challenges in this ritual, and he's freed.
But even then, that's kind of psychotic in its own right.
Doesn't change anything. Wonka, you think, would be happier now that he's free of the curse that keeps him bound to this abandoned factory full of its weird imp-like custodial staff. But
well, the idea.
what about the Wonka Vader? He's not even sure it's gonna work. We might.
Well, he's never gotten to leave, so
it'll cut
yeah.
us to riblets, maybe.
Maybe.
That part of the movie always seemed like the fucking weirdest to me. Like, yeah, I have this weird ass elevator thingy, and I'm like, okay. The boat scene for some reason makes more sense to me because it's just like this guy's unhinged.
Yeah.
Right.
It fits in there neatly, even if it's strange. But the ending is just so fucking disjointed to me and never made any fucking sense.
You know, you hit on that because, like, the movie, it feels like it almost has an anti-ending in a way. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh yeah, don't forget the man who, you know, he says something and then there's a hug and then they fly away into the sky. It's like, well, so what happened?
You'll have to wait for the sequel.
He actually does.
We know what happens in the books. They go to outer space.
Mm-hmm.
And then that book is terrifying too because there's these weird aliens.
Well, Roald Dahl is kind of a.
Roald Dahl is amazing, by the way.
No, he's a great writer, but
he doesn't condescend to children.
Here's the thing about Roald Dahl: he and his own writing alone, he's a messed up guy. I mean, he had a weird life, but you've read his adult short stories.
I have Switch Bitch on my shelf over there.
But no, read his adult short stories. They're really fucking good. But they're very disturbing and dark. Like he has one short story called The Landlady, and it's about a woman who poisons her hotel guests.
But it's never obliquely said that she poisons her hotel guests. Every single thing about that is implied, and you make the horror yourself. And he was really good at that.
And then another one, it's called Lamb to the Slaughter, where a wife kills her husband in the beginning with a cold, like a frozen lamb leg, like the ones that you cooked.
Where she like beats him to death with it?
No, she just hits him over the head with it, and it kills him. But she gets away with it because she starts cooking the lamb. She goes over to the grocery store and buys peas and stuff like that. She's like, oh, I'm making lamb for my husband. Comes back, screams, calls the police, and she gets away with it. And that's the whole story.
Wow.
And
I have a
actually
question.
feeds the lamb to the police officers.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Is there a leg of lamb currently in the freezer?
Not ours.
Okay, I was worried for a second there.
Yeah, you actually, I did a double take too, but
No, I wouldn't want to kill you, David. I love you too much.
For now.
For now. Well, because what made the book interesting in the beginning. So it's shown that it's told that the woman's pregnant, and then her husband basically says something to her that deeply disturbs her, and then that's what causes her to kill him. It's never stated what he says, but that it just disturbs her so deeply.
Interesting.
But it's implied like he's having an affair or he's leaving her or something of that nature. Yeah. It's a really good story.
I believe it.
They actually Alfred Hitchcock did for Alfred Hitchcock Hour actually did an episode based off that book.
Oh, interesting.
Short story, yeah. You can, so if you don't want to read it, you can watch it.
There you go.
Can we just say that that show was pretty hit or miss?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's true.
But
I
yeah.
agree with that. It's
Good
like
evening.
So yeah, those are our choices. I am assuming that is your presentation.
Yeah,
in
pretty
total?
much. And Kayla hijacked my presentation.
Well, that's all right.
It's okay.
Kayla can do what she likes.
yeah, I can do what I want. So screw you.
And
No,
so
I-
those are our choices. Say in the comments below what you think is the best or most scary or whatever horror movie that is not actually a horror movie. That wasn't intended to be horror or wasn't sold as horror, but actually is pretty horrific. But yeah. And so we had a second part. I don't know how long we've been going here, but
We could do it sort of shotgun it.
yeah, I mean, let's just
Do it a little faster.
Yeah, say a little quickly about each of our choices and elaborate a bit, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you guys want to go in the same order? That would probably be easy.
Okay.
So Kayla,
this
that would
is
be
it.
you first.
This one's a tricky one for me because
I'm sorry to interrupt. I should remind everybody that this is a actual horror film that is not very horrific. Is actually just not scary or not horror or whatever. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, this is tricky for me because I mean, I grew with I've never been the biggest. It's like I like horror films, but if there's meaning to them or something like that, but I don't unless it has something to do with like torture or uncomfortableness, like David. I'm not scared by them. So there's a point where I actually will start laughing. So Nightmare on Elm Street, I actually laughed through it. And I think, but it's definitely a horror movie. That's the thing.
Well,
so,
yeah, I mean,
Well,
the
it's
thing
fine.
is an actual
then-
horror movie, but yet not really horrific. You know, like, oh, that's not scary, or whatever. So.
No, I know, and that's a tricky part because it's. I mean, it still has that horror factor, but it's old and it's old in that cheesy way that makes me laugh. I kind of want to go with though, Sleepaway Camp,
Oh.
just because it's just a typical thriller killing film that's like. All these people are such assholes that you're like, well, I'm not feeling too bad for them. And then
looks like a lady.
eh. And then it's just the only thing that people remember from that film is that's a penis. And then they reveal this like whole twist ending that's like, wait. So we could have had a better story, but instead, no, we just have to watch this girl just kill a bunch of people for no reason. None.
But your choice is Nightmare on Elm Street.
No, I think I'm gonna go with Sleepaway Camp. 'Cause at
Oh,
least,
okay.
I mean, I was saying like I laughed through Nightmare on Elm
Oh, I
Street.
see. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street had in their series certainly had a lot of strange things like eating somebody on a pizza and all that. But-
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's still that one scene where the bed eats Johnny Depp and then blood comes out. That's still kind of like a kind of uncomfortable scene. But I'm gonna have to go with Sleepaway Camp because it is still like the tongue-in-cheek. It's still just like it's not that scary, and then it's like it's really all because of that spoiler at the end.
Right.
Although her face at the end is pretty messed up.
I think it's hilarious. Just that,
Okay, so next was Mr. DP himself.
I think I suggested this extra idea, and I didn't really have one prepared very well.
God
But I
damn
will
it.
say, I'm going to pick one that is definitely a horror movie, definitely scary at times, definitely creepy, but the overarching thing that drives the narrative forward is actually a love story, and it's Let the Right One In.
Ah.
Have you heard of
okay.
this?
oh,
Have any of you seen this?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it, but yeah.
I've heard of it too. Again,
It's
a book that I want to read because I think the love story is very interesting.
probably one of my favorite movies. I love the idea of this boy who is very violent, falling in love with this vampire who has to be violent but doesn't want to be. And the dynamic that they have and how they form a relationship together.
And these are
is
younger
very
children
beautiful.
in the story.
Yes, these are very young children. Well, I won't spoil stuff, but
Yeah.
if you die if you die a vampire when you're a kid, stay as you were when you die. So one of them isn't actually a kid.
Right.
Beautiful, beautiful love story, very heartwarming, and I won't spoil the ending, obviously, but I will say that the ending doesn't end with horror; it ends with love, and I like that. It was nice and cute.
So that's sort of like a positive take on the thing of which horror movie is not a horror movie.
Also, I love how I went super art house on this. It's like, have you seen Drive? Have you seen Let the Right One In?
Have you read my fan fiction combining the two universes?
Yes.
Drive the right one in, yeah.
Right. Yes.
So I guess I was next. My choice, and I am on the other side of it where I'm going to completely slam something. My choice is the 2008 movie The Strangers.
Oh my God, I am so with you.
Oh my god, what a crappy movie. This is the About Schmidt of horror movies, where you're waiting for something to happen and it never does. But unlike About Schmidt, that's not the point of this movie.
It's promising so much,
Yeah.
and it doesn't deliver anything
I
at
don't
all.
What?
like. I'm trying to remember trailers from 2008 about the strangers, and I can't think of it.
That's for good reason.
If you've seen the trailers for The Strangers, it's a better movie. The trailer is a
Right.
better movie than the movie.
I'll just...
I just do a double take for a second. I'm like, The Searchers? I'm like, no, that's the John Wayne movie.
Fuck my answer. I'm stealing Slime Beast's answer.
No.
I say The Strangers.
No. And I will tell for anybody out there, The Strangers is about Liv Tyler and some dude, I don't remember who it was. It's one of those things where they say based on a true story. It's about a home invasion by 3 masked characters who menace this young couple. And instead of doing anything you'd like to see in a horror movie about a home invasion where masked people menace a young couple, instead what they do is continually just menace them. Like, look at them from afar and follow them closely as they run, and then, shit like that, until the point where you actually are just hoping to God that they kill this young couple and the movie ends. It's, there's nothing... There was no point in this
Spoiler,
movie
they
where I was
kill them.
scared. Say what?
Spoiler, they kill them in the most uninteresting way possible.
I mean, it's just...
It's like you see the ending, and it's like slowly happens.
Right.
And there's this realization of like, oh, this movie was fucking nothing.
Exactly. At all. I mean, that's the point, that's my point of why this is a horror movie that's not scary or doesn't have any horror in it, is because it essentially takes the idea of, like, a mugging or, any number of common everyday crimes that you hear about and you don't want happening to you, which, would be a home break-in. It takes the idea of that thing and expands absolutely zero on that idea. Just the idea of, gee, I hope someone doesn't break into my house and kill me. And so the movie is just some people break into a house and kill the couple. And it's like, there's absolutely no horror elements to this other than the fact that they gave them masks. And by the way, the lead villain is called the Masked Man. That's it. That's the actual name of the character. Say what?
Bogus Central Station.
Boo.
The movie insults your intelligence at every turn.
Yes. And
It's incredible.
the maker of this film, I looked it up, went on to make 3 other films. Video on Demand movie in 2014. And 2 films, I guess, in 2015 coming up or whatever. It was like a career killer, I think. Because this was touted as... I mean, sort of like similar to what you saw with The Purge. It was similar to that type of ad campaign of, what happens when crazy things happen and masked people break into your house and, oh no, it's chaos and, But this, unlike The Purge, which actually had things happen, this was just like, imagine all the tropes and cliches of a slasher movie. Being chased and tripping. that type of thing. Imagine all the more boring tropes and put them all in one movie where nothing happens except that.
and it has really slow pacing, and the
Right.
slow pacing makes you think, oh, there's going to be some really cool twist that's going to
Right.
make all of this movie worthwhile.
Right.
No.
And that was
No,
my
there's not.
comparison to About Schmidt, was I struggled through About Schmidt, and I understand, what the movie was and what it was about and everything, but I did watch that as sort of a labor of, okay, well, nothing's
As in
actually
you
happening,
labored
but
while
yeah.
watching it.
Say what?
As in you labored while watching it.
Yeah. I was in labor during the, but
Oh, it's a slime baby.
Grody.
but yeah, so that's my choice, and I guess I'll leave it there because it's just a lot of talking and some tropes of slasher movies.
You know what? It's not even a whole lot of talking either. It's a lot of people
That's true.
looking at each other
That's true.
disinterested.
There's a
You know
lot of
what-
stuff like,
It's less than that.
it
You know
has
what's
that
funny though?
it has the nerve to do that thing where one character says, I don't think that you should touch me after what you did. And the other person says, how many times do I have to apologize? And the other person just says, after what you've done, I don't think there's any apology. And that's like, you're like, oh, gee, what did he do? But then it's like, well, no, we're never going to tell you. It's just...
Yeah, there's no. It's open-ended, left hanging.
Right, and it's like that, the nerve of that kind of thing where you can just see the writer. You don't even see the movie. You see in your mind's eye the writer sitting there saying, oh man, do I have a story here? They're going to all be wondering, And you're just like, fuck you,
Yeah, that's really funny because again, when we were discussing theory like a couple of days ago, me and Dead Palette were talking about like where to give the audience breadcrumbs and where to play your cards close to the chest,
Right.
And this is a spectacular failure in that regard in both essences,
Crazy.
Also, don't watch the movie. We're not saying that it's so bad it's good. It's just bad.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's horrifically bad. Watch the last minute and you'll just see how the movie was
Just
planning
watch.
to insult your intelligence all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible how disrespectful that movie is to its audience.
And, on top of it all, which is the big sin, is not scary. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Now-
that's my choice, and I feel like I took more time than everyone else after telling people to hurry up.
Well,
so.
it's also my answer too.
Well, the funny thing is, as you were talking about it, because I had thought about this a little bit, because originally, when I was posing this question, I wanted to mention, in a completely positive way, the 1963 Robert Weiss film, The Haunting, which is based on the Shirley Jackson novel, The Haunting of Hill House, I think that's what
Yeah,
it's called.
It's called The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, though, I realize it doesn't fit the definition of how you might consider modern day horror, If anything, what's good about The Haunting is that it's a chiller and it's got scary elements to it, but everything is very subtle. Everything is very about atmosphere and camera angles and the implications of something. And it's more about the interesting character dynamics. And I realize for a topic like this, I don't know if it's the right thing to discuss because it doesn't really feel like a horror movie. It feels like it's tense. There's suspense. It's a chiller. But then again, I go like, so is it even right that I bring it up?
Well, I
I'm
mean,
not
it has haunt right in the title, so.
Right. So in terms of movies that I think are, but the thing is, then I thought to myself, but it's not really a horror movie because it doesn't have what I think some of the more lowbrow traits of what you might think are in horror movies, or not lowbrow, but what you would expect. But
I mean, if
it's-
we're going to count some of the things we've counted in the past, I think that's fine.
Okay.
It's not
It
a
is-
big
we're,
stretch.
we're setting up these, titles, and it's kind of nebulous what we're talking about because we've all interpreted these questions different ways
Right.
right.
from the get-go.
And that's why this podcast is awesome.
Different people with different opinions, having a conversation.
And being adults about it. Sort of.
But with the but I bring it up. I bring it up any opportunity I can because The Haunting is legit one of my favorite movies, like ever. It's just you don't see the kind of nuance to the storytelling in that when you get a haunted house movie. It's almost more about the dynamic between the four characters of the movie, and particularly the main character Eleanor. And you know, there's a strength for you right there. With a movie like The Strangers, do you remember the names of any of the characters at all?
No,
God,
absolutely
no.
not.
In a lot of the in like Friday the no, not Friday the 13th. In Nightmare on Elm Street, do you remember the names of any of the characters at all?
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. There you go. See, so you remember the characters of The Haunting. You remember who they are and what their like traits were, and what their dynamics were with each other. It was very clever the way it handles the character development. Each one has an agenda. Each one is very distinct from the other, and their relationships change throughout the course of the movie.
So
But
you would
there-
say it's more
there's
like
never-
an interpersonal drama or suspense than an actual horror movie.
It's definitely suspense, but it's all in the backdrop of this haunted house, and the house is a character in itself in the movie, practically, an unknowable character, but a character nonetheless. And I just, it's so much fun to watch. You never, maybe this is, I don't know, you never see a ghost. You never once see a physical, any like quantifiable entity. You never see a specter. But the presence is there all the time, and I love that. It manifests in different ways.
Which film is the one with the creepy elderly maid that they pulled on a dolly?
That oh my god, that was House on Haunted Hill.
Okay.
And that movie is silly, but also a classic.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
It's-
separate in my mind the different things.
That was the one with the acid bath in the floor, right?
Yes.
The trap door. That was amazing.
So entirely different films.
Entirely different films. I can promise you that. They just have unfortunately close names.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one is called One was based on a book called The Haunting of Hill House, and then you got The House on Haunted Hill.
Right.
I guess the only caveat to that is, so my choice is a movie that maybe is billed as a horror movie, but definitely isn't a horror movie, but in the best way possible is probably The Haunting.
Okay.
Although, since you brought up The Purge during,
Well, does The Purge count as a horror film?
in my opinion, no. It counts as a frustrating mess.
Because
you know what
it
that-
has horror
that-
elements. I mean, you know.
Well, yeah, but it builds, but it's not, it builds, okay, here's the thing. The movie fails spectacularly in my mind about what it was supposed to be setting itself up for, because you hear the premise of the movie. They bill it on the premise of the movie being one night crime is legal.
Right.
That's a really cool premise. There's so much you could do with that, right?
Right.
It's a home invasion movie. It's basically The Strangers. And they
It's
even
the
do the
Strangers,
same
but
thing.
at least there's some killing throughout, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there's that much. So I guess that's why I opted to go back to my original choice rather than talk about The Purge. I debated talking about it because the movie just frustrated me in the sense that it was not what it was. It wasn't what it said on the poster.
Right.
It was a home invasion movie with masked people who killed people and stood around creepily sometimes, and it should have been about. Also, the premise is kind of nonsense anyway.
Right. Well,
But-
I mean, the minute you saw a kid with a working robot, you probably...
Yeah, but I mean, I haven't seen The Purge 2 apparently, but from what I understand, it's a lot closer to what
The repurgening.
the repurgening, electric purgaloo.
Oh, man.
Oh, I really stretched with that one. I'm sorry. So, but yeah, no.
Electric Boogaloo.
The Haunting is my choice, and everybody who considers themselves fans of horror or generally creepypasta aficionados and just people who like spooky stuff, you'll love this movie. Trust me. If you don't love
Okay.
this movie, you're gonna have to take it up with me.
And he will pay you your money back.
Yeah, because I represent it.
So, yeah,
the
we got
state.
our choices out there for basically like the scariest non-horror movie. And then, like, almost sort of the least scary horror movie. You know, if you boil it down. So yeah, I mean I think that we got everything out and we did pretty well here. And I think
We
that
certainly
people
did.
can let us know below in the comments what you think is the more correct answer to each question, and you could just tell us off.
We like feedback. We like hearing
right.
discussions. We obviously I've been in this pretty consistently for a while now, so it's everything said is just as near and dear to my heart as it is to Slime Beast. So
And yeah, I guess with that, I will say that I am Slime Beast, the master of fear, and this is Jumpscared. And my guests today or tonight were David King, who you can find on Midnight Marinara, which I will link below. You will also find his producer, executive producer,
I don't know what I'm called anymore.
Lawyer.
Kayla McLaren.
The lawyer from Midnight
You'll
Marinara.
find her there as
How
well.
dare you?
You can find Dead Palette on his channel, Dead Palette, and I will link that below too. And I guess I will say that wraps up this episode of Jumpscared, and I don't know how long this episode was, but I'm very sorry, and we're all very sorry, but we're also not sorry, so
we're not that sorry.
deal with it.
Hey, you could have stopped listening to us a long time ago, but you still continue.
And I just realized that I did not record any of that. Oh boy.
You're joking, right?
Master of Fear!
Fuck you.